Hello there. Welcome back to another episode of Unspoken Reality podcast. And in this episode, we are going to focus on the steps to improvement. And this is just a continuation from the previous episode, whereby we were focusing on some of the things that you need to do after campus, right? In order to perhaps improve in your life and in your well being. And the episode after that, just to recap on it, was reason as to why New Year's resolution fail, and we highlighted some of the things that we think are contributors to why people don't follow up with the resolutions that they set in January. As of today, this is January the 18th, and I want to believe that you're still on track on the things that you said you wanted to do and you want to achieve this year. And just a recap on it, two main things. The first one was mentality. Nothing changes if nothing changes. You have to be able to want to change, and you have to take the steps towards that change that you want. And once you have dealt with the mental aspect of it, the mindset has changed, has shifted, and you have seen that you're capable of achieving so much more, then you move into the steps of achieving that same thing. And before you even go to the steps, one thing that which will be the first step of improvement for this episode is understanding yourself, self-awareness. Basically, what are the areas of your life that needs to change, and what are the things that you need to do in order for you to change? And another thing that we talked about in the previous episode was basically the importance of starting small. Giving an example why it's important to start small is the association that your mind creates towards actions, right? So for example, when you decide to go and lose weight and you go for a run or maybe just a walk, and the first time that you're doing it in a long while, or maybe you've never done this before, and you decide to walk for 2 hours at least, or at most 2 hours, and it's the first time, mind you, or even running, and you push your body to the limit that you have never done before, it will be very hard for you to follow up on the routine, because the association that your mind has created towards this activity of losing weight in relation to running is the pain factor of it. So that the second time, or rather the plan that you've put in place to follow up on this exercise, the mind becomes resistant because it has already associated that this activity in itself, it's not a good activity. It makes me feel pain, right? So you realize that it becomes harder for you to continue to become consistent in it because of the pain factor. And an analogy that I can give you is, they said, at least I was told, that when you want to kill a frog, for all the animal rights activists, chill. It's just an analogy. Damn. Right. If you want to kill a frog, you don't just throw it into hot water. Direct, it will jump out of the sufuria, the bowl, whatever. What you do, you place it in an environment that it's used to. Perhaps the water or room temperature, or rather just the aquatic temperature that it's used to. And you start boiling the water gradually increasing the temperature. So as the temperature of the water increases, so does the temperature of this frog increase. Because it's a cold-blooded, whatever. Well, if I remember my science correctly. And so it's now accustomed to the environment. Even when the temperature increases, so does the temperature of this frog in itself, until eventually it dies, because it's now accustomed to the surrounding with the changing, with the gradual change in temperature. And it should be the same case when you want to tackle a big task, or rather a big milestone and a goal. Start small. so that your body and your mind becomes accustomed to the surrounding. With every changing circumstance, every changing day, your body comes accustomed to it. And so at the time whereby you'll be able to achieve a long run, the endurance factor in it, you will have already been accustomed to it, because your mind, your body adapted to the circumstance. Remember, we talked about adaptability being the heart of consistency, right? Because of the changing circumstance, our work life, our school life, we are not always in that same circumstance. It changes, so you need to be able to adapt. Another example that I'd give you is just also the resolution that I've set for myself this year. I try to be physically fit, but most times I'm not really consistent at it because of the circumstance. And so sometimes I would go hard, and I can do a lot of push ups. Is it push ups or sit ups? Push ups in one session. But I've realized that, just as I've mentioned, because of the pain factor that the mind associates it to, I'm not able to be consistent daily. And so I've just decided to start small. So I've made it a habit of doing 10 push ups every day in the morning and in the evening. That's 20 push ups. I know that my body is capable of so much more, and I have an evidence, or rather I have the experience of doing so much more in one session. But because I want to be consistent, I want my body to adapt, not just to the act of pushing up, but to create time to push up, to do the push-ups. I decided now to just start small and increment, and every other month I increment with 10 more push-ups, 10 more push-ups until the end of the month. And if I keep up the consistency, my body will adapt, because I know of people that can do 100 push-ups in one session. So you gradually build up to it. Otherwise, you will fail along the way. And I'm not saying that this idea in itself is infallible, because for all these 18 days of January, I can say I've missed at least four. I've skipped around 4 days. And there are days that perhaps I've skipped the morning, I've done the evening session. So it's not infallible, but just creating that system whereby consistency becomes easy. And so that's just a bit of a summary, or rather a recap of what we did in the previous episode. And so in this episode, I've been thinking a lot about it. I could have recorded it earlier, but I thought I did not have enough material to give you in regards to the steps towards improvement, because I only know of two that I'm aware of and that it works. The first one being self awareness, and the second one being action. Like, you have to take action. Nothing moves if you don't move. And I believe that's enough for you to pick up, even from just this episode, that self awareness of what needs to change and taking action towards the things that need to change. That in itself is enough. It's a wrap for this episode. Yeah, but I went a step ahead. I did some bit of research. When I say research, just Googling here and there, not like the in depth or whatever. And so, yeah, I did some bit of research to what are some of the steps towards improvement. And remember, I had mentioned 5 key areas that you need to improve in. The first one was spiritual. The second was mental. This comes with the intellectual capacity and the emotional capacity. The third one was physical. The fourth one was social. And the fifth one was financial. And so, if you are not aware of those, or you're listening to this episode for the first time, I'd advise you to go and take a listen to the episode titled What Next? Right, so taking that into consideration, the first step towards improvement: reflect on your current state. Where are you at this point in time? Are you past graduation? Are you awaiting graduation? Or you're doing your exams, your final exams? I'm also cognizant of the fact that perhaps you're not in the schooling system, and perhaps you are in the workforce. So where are you? Reflect on your current state. What resources do you have at your disposal? And I believe in this point in time, we can all say that we share the same resource in the name of the internet. All of us have that, and it's a huge resource depending on how you want to use it. It can be a distractor, or it can be the thing that propels you to where you want to be. Considering that a lot of courses online are free, and most people are moving their expertise to YouTube, you can find whatever you want at least the basics and the intermediates of something before you gain mastery. You can find them freely available. You don't even have to pay a cent. Because I normally tend to think that if you're somebody that wants to invest in a certain skill, why don't, before you even start planning with money that, oh, I don't have the enough finances to go and study this course and upskill myself, why don't you start with what's available, what's free? Because you'll realize that you can do a lot. I want to say that the Pareto principle applies to this, that the 20% that you will get from this YouTube and these free available resources, you can do 80% with it. And so you only, the 80% at least can be found in now this the paid courses, and this 80% will allow you to be an expert, but the 20% that of what you will learn freely can allow you to do 80% of the tasks. Ask a lot of digital designers, digital creators, coders, people that are self-taught. They will tell you that a lot of what they learned and a lot of what is assisting them to do the work that they do at this point in time, they learned it freely. And so, yeah, reflect on the resources that you have. Secondly, reflect on your skills. This is especially to someone who is just has just graduated, or you are in that 3 months period that I told you, from June to September, to those who that follow that timeline. Reflect on the skill that you have. My experience on internship has been this, that the people that employed me, that gave me that opportunity to intern at their company, they did not do so because of my papers. I think I'll have an episode to talk about it, but just to say it in summary, I did not even give my papers. They did not even ask for my papers. I can say an aspect of it ni God manze, what we normally say, because I cannot attribute this kind of favor to man. And the second thing was the skill that I had. And this one was through connection, of course. Networking is a very important factor. And so I did not even share my papers. They don't have my papers. They do not know the grade that I got in campus after graduating. They don't have my transcript. I did not send my CV. It's because of the skill that I had and the kind of value that I'm bringing to the company, right? So evaluate, reflect. What skill do you have at this point in time? Is that skill valuable enough for you to be rewarded with money? If it's not, then there is work that you need to do. There are a lot of work that you need to do in order for you to upskill. And a lot of work comes only in terms of you dedicating the time to study, because as I had mentioned prior, all of this information, most of it is available freely online. And the third thing that you need to reflect on your current state is opportunities. What opportunities are there at your disposal? And just reiterating back, I think internet is a big opportunity. The available courses are a big opportunity. Another aspect of opportunity could be which friends do you have that can be gatekeepers, right? They can be people that will introduce you to people that you need in order to advance. There are some that will send you the scholarships that are available. There are some that will tell you, go and read this book. It talks about this, and I see that you're interested in that kind of area. And even aside from that, you've reflected on the resources that you have, time, money, energy. You have reflected on the skill that you perhaps have and you need to improve upon, or the one that you need in order to propel yourself forward. And then taking these two into consideration, now, which opportunity do you need for you to invest your skill in order to propel yourself forward and to improve in the aspects of your life? I could perhaps take time and dig deeper into this, but this, as I had mentioned earlier, this being the first step, self-awareness, reflecting on your current state, is very important. Look at the resources, look at the skills, look at the opportunities. Perhaps I might have missed something else, but these three are important. The second one that I had found was on developing a growth mindset, and I had mentioned this earlier as I had started this podcast, and in context of the previous episode that we did. having that growth mindset that all of you can win. You don't have to win at the detriment of someone else. The resources that you have is enough for each and every one of us. And what you should be thinking is, in what ways can I advance more? And I don't only advance for my sake, it's for others' sake. There's one thing that I heard from Vusi Tembekwa. I think it was the first encounter that I had with him, probably 4 years ago. He said that success is not success if it's only for you. You lift as you rise. And that one should be the mindset that's permeating your mind, that I'm not going to improve in my lifestyle that I can be rich and I can have a good life just for myself. No. We are doing this for the sake of people that believe in us, for those that assisted us in one way or another to get us to where we are at this point in time. So develop a growth mindset. How do you do that? You elevate your perspective. The environment in which we were brought up in can really limit our perspective, because our worldview is based on the circumstances that we grew up in. If you grew up from a humble background, a poor, poverty stricken background, most poor people tend to believe that richness is cursed, perhaps, and you cannot be happy when you're rich. You know that song, Erinilie kwenye boda boda money, something of that sort, whichever. There's a connotation that we have of rich people, that richness is associated with sadness. Not always, not always. There are rich people that are very happy and are enjoying their life as it is at this point in time. So you need to elevate your perspective. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change. We can also delve deep into perspective and perception, how we view things, but perhaps in another episode. So, how do you elevate your perspective? You embrace learning, long life learning. Stay curious, read widely, ask a lot of questions. And at this point in time, I believe we are very privileged to have the large learning models. Is it large language models? For example, the ChatGPT, that when you have a question that, there are some questions that you might ask an expert, but because of the limitation of language and limitation of communication, they cannot be able to articulate their thoughts well in order to answer you fully. But when we have these large language models, you can just ask what you have, and you can even ask a counter question based on the explanation that will be given. So stay curious, embrace long life learning. The third one, take note that the first one, when we talk about reflecting on your current state, this is one of the basic foundation, but all the others from number two, it's not in any defined order. You can decide to set wherever you want it to be. But the first one, self-awareness, is key. Right. So the third one, build strong foundations. Build strong foundations. Yeah, as much as I'm aware that at this point in time you will have already built a foundation, but the kind of foundation that I'm talking about, remember, this is in context to improvement. How then do you improve? I believe health is an important foundation to set, to build. You need to eat well, you need to exercise, prioritize sleep. Don't Burnout comes when we immerse ourselves, our whole energy into something for a long time without even considering rest. And so consider eating well, consider exercising, consider prioritizing sleep. Another strong foundation is finances. Yes, at this point in time, you might not be financially stable. Needless to say, you might not even have the finances, the kind of finances that you're talking about for you to be a good financial manager. But all these habits, when it comes to being financially literate, comes from budgeting, starting to save early. And as I'm very much aware that the finance that you might be having at this point in time is not enough for you to start saving. That one I'm very much aware. But at least budget. Don't just spend haphazardly. I know of people that are impulsive buyers. You see something good on the street and you just feel like, no, I should get this thing. And then you end up realizing that days down the road, you did not even need that thing in the first place. You did not even, you did not need it. You were just wasting money that could have been used for other expense somewhere that is pressing and that is a necessity. So budget. And I think this one applies especially to those that have started internship and that they're getting a bit of stipend, a monthly stipend. Budget that finances. What portion of my finance goes to food? What goes to rent? What goes to clothes? What goes to sending back home, black tax, as they say? What goes to, yeah, tithe is also important. A percentage of that earning. It's important. It's important to glorify God for the grace and the mercy, right? So budget everything into the last coin, and also take note of the miscellaneous, something that I've come to realize of recent, and also the amount of money that goes to the social aspect. This social could be not necessarily your friends and family, but perhaps people that are needy in the society. I think it's important, as much or as little as your earning is, it's important to just give a portion, even if it's as low as 1,000 shillings throughout the whole month. That maybe today I'm giving 50 to someone, tomorrow I'm giving 30 to whoever, those street children that sometimes come and ask you, hey, uncle, nisaidie kitu. Make budget for them, so that the more you increase, the more also the budget for the social aspect increases, right? And back to the miscellaneous. Of course, you might have budgeted for the miscellaneous, and you realize that as you live out your days throughout the month before the next pay, there are some things that come up that you need to pay for. So don't start by spending on the miscellaneous as early as, okay, at this money and the miscellaneous, and then you just feel like, oh, I need to spend on this, I need to spend on this. No, spend on the miscellaneous the last month, the last week of the month before the next pay, or rather even after you've been paid. Now the miscellaneous for the last month is what you spend on. And this one, you do it by now taking note of the needs that you have, because this miscellaneous are needs that just arises and you had not planned for them. It could be, there are those that are pressing that might come as an emergency. They should be taken out of the miscellaneous. But there are others that are just your needs, your necessities. Perhaps maybe it's to buy a new earphone, and it could be because the one that you are using is on its last legs. You know those kind of earphones whereby you have to twist them at an angle for them to work. Most of the time it's the charger, like you can't charge it without uh, placing your phone perpendicular or at some weird demonic angles, whatever. So you get the point. If you can be able to push through before before taking care of that need as early as possible, then do so. Push it up to the end before you get the next pay, so that you can spend. Because you might realize that you have depleted your miscellaneous, but there are still other needs that have arisen and you have not budgeted for. Yeah, a lot on the finances, but yeah, I believe you've taken what's important from that. Maybe we'll have also a different segment just on finances alone in the near future. But yeah, as I had mentioned, you are not learned, you don't have enough to save, but at least learn the basics of investment and personal finance. What is there that's available? How does money market fund work? What are circles? Yeah, the Safaricom M-Pesa app has new money market fund called the ZD, for those that don't know. So instead of putting, there are those that put their money just sitting there on M-Pesa. There are those that go a step further and put it in Mshwari. There are those that put it in Mshwari locked savings account. And then there are some like us, and maybe some that are a bit aware of this. I think it started just a few months ago. It's not. It doesn't stay for long. Before that, then there was the Mali money market fund, and then there was some issues and all that. But this one, called the ZD Money Market Fund, if you're aware, you will realize that the interest rates that you gain from your money just sitting there are different from the M-Pesa itself all the way up to ZD in the order in which I've mentioned them. For example, Mshwari, if I'm not wrong on the figures, offers at least 6% per annum. 6% per annum is way below the inflation rate, which is at 8% to about 10% per annum from the last time I checked. That's very low. So if you put your money in Mshwari for 1 year, it will lose value, meaning you will lose your purchasing power. But when it comes now to ZD, the last I checked, ZD offered an interest rate of 12% per annum. So on top of the 8% of inflation, you have four more the interest rate, meaning that you are not only preserving the value, but you're increasing your purchasing power, so your money doesn't lose value over time. So these are the things that you need to consider when it comes to being being aware in your finances. A lot more perhaps in future. Right. Lastly, when it comes to building strong foundations are built on skills. If you're an engineer, you've studied engineering, you've studied mass media, mass communication, journalism, you've studied catering. Is it what else do people study nowadays? A lot of these courses, design and all that. Skills is the key aspects that will guarantee your employability. What can you do? Yes, you have all these papers, you have theory. What can you do? So develop hard skills, very important, that you can sit down and offer a solution towards something that a company is facing. And at this point in time, I looked at the World Economic Forum report of 2025, and the top 5 jobs that I've noted that are interesting to me. There are several that are going to experience an exponential growth in the next 5 years. There are a lot, and there are those also that are going to be dormant or rather redundant in the next 5 years as well. So you also need to look at it. If you're in that sector, then it's important for you to go and reskill or upskill, especially for those that are about to join campus. Don't go and do a course out of ignorance because you don't, maybe you are being told that this course is what sells at this point in time. And also you are told that it's an easy course, it's guaranteed first class. You can have that first class of yours, but you won't be able to help solve any pressing challenge in the society. So it's important to look at this. Go and look at that report, go and look at the jobs. And remember, it's not your course that sells. It's not how marketable your course is, it's how marketable you are as an individual. Take note that a course can be marketable, but your marketability as an individual is what matters, in the sense of how have you packaged yourself. That raises the point of self-branding, which is very important. Take a look into that. How do you brand yourself as an entity? So yeah, develop these hard skills. Also develop the soft skills. Very important. Can you communicate? Can you articulate your thoughts well? Can you write? Can you dispense your ideas onto a piece of paper in such a structured, logical format, a logical flow of thought that you are start from the introduction all the way to the conclusion, and someone can read and say, indeed, this someone is an intellect. Can you do that? If you can't, then you need to go and work on communication. And as I had said before, we have ChatGPT, and this type actually it has been improved in the sense that it can talk, it can give you feedback, and so you can just ask it how can I improve my communication. It will give you examples, it will give you scenarios, it will give you what is it? There are 3 aspects that I normally use. The first one is thought-provoking questions. It gives you thought-provoking questions that you're supposed perhaps to explain about it in under a minute, and it evaluates how you've performed and what you could improve upon. Aside from that, there is role playing. It challenges you to act a certain role, and you give perhaps, I don't know, I'm losing words there. Another one is, I'm trying to recall this from memory, assuming my memory serves me well. The last one was scenario based questions. And all these, aside from others, storytelling, they improve your communication skills. And communication skills is very important because through communication, even as a leader, you can be able to inspire people and to motivate someone to action, right? So this is a very important aspect when it comes to soft skills. So there are a lot of soft skills that you can improve upon and you can work on. When talk of marketing, we have digital marketing, we have talk of networking, talk of negotiation. And that one brings me to my fourth point on the steps to improvement. Network strategically. Network strategically. This one, it's very important for those that are starting campus, because as much as universities and colleges are an academic entity, but time and the economic aspect of the time that you are living in has shown us that universities are not so much an academic entity, but we can all agree that it is a social entity. So how do you interact? Whom do you interact with? I had this idea when I was in first year that I should interact with people from all the engineering field because I was pursuing engineering. So people from mechanical, civil, biosystems, petroleum, geospatial, and which one else, and electrical. So I created a group in first year that was just a study group per se, because in first year we shared a lot of common units with all the six engineering departments. And so I thought, instead of creating just one for my class, though I did that as well, why don't I create one just that involves revolves around the engineering space in general? And so that's what I did. And most of those people in that group, they were two for each department. Most of them are my friends up to this point in time. And it was a strategic investment when it comes to networking, because I'm aware if someone needs something from my domain, biosystems engineering, they can just get me easily. And based on the networking that I did 5 years ago, we share something in common. It won't be like a first time encounter with them. And if I need something from civil engineering, from mechanical, because all of these people, they actually did well, and you could see it in them based on the ambition that they had from the start, that these people are going to succeed. I'm not saying that that should be the only thing that you're looking at when you are networking, that how is this person going to help me in the future. No, you network with trying to create genuine friendship and genuine connection, but you do so in such a way that you've casted your net far and wide. If I had more time and if I had thought, I would have gone even to all the other faculties just aside from engineering to see how best I could. But I've created friendship with a lot of people from different faculties and even different universities. And this is important because you never know where someone is headed. This doesn't mean that now that you're out of campus, you won't be able to network with people that you are with at the moment. No, but basically the point of networking strategically is building genuine relationships, right? Aside from that, based on where you are, attend events, conferences, online forums, just be on the lookout to some of these activities whereby value is being shared. Also use your LinkedIn to connect with professionals. And lastly, have a personal elevator pitch ready. We'll go into details in future episodes because I've just said we are past the 30th minute mark. And I don't really want to bore you with a lot of this because I know it's a lot. Right. As we wind up, the fifth one is gain experience. Gain experience. Even if you've written for jobs somewhere and you are not receiving them, you haven't gotten the feedback, or rather the feedback that you're getting is solely to inform you that we decided to go with another candidate. It happens, that's life. But try to see, as much as the economy is the way it is, if you can afford it, volunteer. There won't be any much pay, or rather there won't be even any pay at all. And I know it's very tough for someone out of campus to just go and volunteer somewhere, because you did that volunteer in quotes during your attachment period. So why go and volunteer again free of charge? But if that's what is there and you cannot, rather than just sitting around doing nothing, try to find and see which are these companies that you can volunteer in. And ukienda huko ujitume, and they see your diligence, they see your work ethic, and they can even be giving you stipends and perhaps employ you. But you are not doing so because of the mercy that you want them to show you, wakuonea huruma ati wakuajiri. No, you are doing it because of what you are going to learn. Learning, remember we had talked about staying curious and embracing continuous learning. So you're doing that for the sake of learning. And also look for internships or entry level jobs. That's how you gain experience. I'm really trying to fast track this because of how long this episode will be. But in future, we are going to break each one individually so that at least we can try and get as much as we can out of each aspect and each step of improvement. The sixth one is manage your time effectively. This one is very self-explanatory. But in context of someone that has just finished campus before graduation, there is that period before graduation. For me, it was 3 months period. What you're going to do in between this period is going to matter a lot, because it can either be a determinant in relation to whether you upskill or not. As I just mentioned earlier, the skill that you have is very important as a initiator to the job market, because as much as, yeah, there is that internship, the government rather, or whichever companies, they have that avenue for internship, no one does, in any reasonable sense, no single company wants to employ someone that is so green that it's going to take a lot of resources to teach them on the things that they need to support, so they need to do. Perhaps different companies, depending on how big they are, they have a budget for it, for interns and training and all that. But considering the economy, just as I've had mentioned, many would rather go for someone that already has that skill that they're supposed to spend on to train them, right? So use that period. I insist, that 3 months period before graduation, use it to the best of your capability. I'm very aware that there are some that will gain internship within that period, but there are those that are going to go home, or those that will just be free before graduation. Use that time to upskill. Find out what skill is relevant and is needed in the job market and in relation to the field of study that you pursued, and go and become an expert at. It's not an expert per se, but become something. I think 3 months is enough for you to gain the basics and even gain the intermediaries of that said skill. Yeah, that's it on time management. There is a lot to be discussed in that, but I think that's the most important aspect of it. The seventh one is seek mentorship. This one is very hard for a lot of people, because you don't perhaps have someone that you're looking up to that is well established in the area. Maybe you're the first one in your family to be doing the things that you're doing, and maybe the people that were ahead of you, there is none that you really looked up to, because they're also still trying on their own. But it's still important to have someone ahead of you. For me, I used to do that. When I was in first year, there was someone that I was looking up to in the same course, and this person used to give me past papers after every academic calendar academic year. I would go to them and they would give me past papers for the next year, and also the notes, so that I would read ahead. And we are still close friends up to this point in time. We haven't been in touch for a while, but I can reach them anytime I want to and ask for advice in relation to where they are in life, because I know, at least, as much as I don't have someone very much ahead, I have someone that is at least 1 year ahead. And whatever 1 year experience that they have ahead of me in relation to my course is going to be very beneficial. We'll also delve deeper into the aspect of mentorship in future episodes, but that's just it in relation to seeking improvement. Have someone that you're looking up to. It's not necessarily perhaps someone that's within your field or even within the country. You can have people that you're looking up to on the internet, that you're following them diligently and ceremoniously, at least to try and get the knowledge and get the experience from their point of view. Now, lastly, it's to stay adaptable. This one wraps up this episode in relation to improvement, because, as I had mentioned earlier, that adaptability is the heart of consistency. Circumstances do change, the environment also changes. So you might get used to something, you might get used to not going to job, just being in the house daily. You might get used also to the work that you are in, and perhaps you might be given a transfer, or you might go for another job. You might just interrupt your job to go for further studies. So stay adaptable. How easily do you adapt to changing situations and changing circumstances? Yep, I feel I've exhausted every point when it comes to the steps towards improvement. But yeah, as much as I've exhausted and disseminated my points, I haven't really broken each one down to its core. And I'm hoping that we'll do that in the future episodes, so that we can just break down each one individually in each episode, so that we don't get this bulk and a lot of information overload, right? But if you have the time, just listen to it keenly and you'll be able to get something out of it. Even you can even listen to it more than once, because I've tried to give a lot of what I know are the logical steps that one ought to follow when it comes to improvement, after you've identified what it is that you need to improve in. So yeah, that's it from me in this episode, and I hope to catch you in the next one. So until then, shalom.